Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we have finally done it. It is the 28th of February and we have done 28 videos in 28 days. Your guys' support on the channel this month has been insane, and I thought today we would finish the month by talking about Arsenal. They are the best team in England at the moment, and there is certainly a debate for being the best team in Europe. So I thought today we would take a look at tactically what makes them so good this season. So before we actually get into the video, I really need to talk to you guys about the OneFootball app, because if, like me, you support not just your favourite team, but also you love watching football from all around the world, then OneFootball really is the perfect app for you. Whether you want team news, player statistics, league tables from around the world, OneFootball has you covered. And of course, every single week a game in Serie A which you can watch live at literally zero cost. OneFootball really is the perfect app to follow football all around the world, and of course those updates on your favourite team. If you're interested, make sure to use the link in the description down below or scan the QR code on screen now. So before we kind of break down tactically, just a quick word on Arteta and Arsenal, because I think they have really earned this season. By sticking with Arteta through the rough patches, by trusting the process, that quote that we all heard, Arsenal are now getting their reward. So I think Arsenal Football Club deserve credit for sticking with Arteta when it weren't very good. And now, as a result, they are getting a good manager, putting in a really good shift with a really good team. And Arsenal just look very good. So of course, tactically, that's what we're going to discuss today. And basically, Arteta, the way that he likes to play, is with his team in possession. Unsurprisingly, he worked under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, so it isn't a surprise for him to be a manager which wants his team to have the ball. And as a result, this means that we very often see Arsenal playing out from the back. And their one-touch play in these situations, I think, is unrivaled in Europe at the moment. The way that they pop a ball about is just absolutely ridiculous. They zip it about so quickly that even when teams try to press them, they just physically can't get there quick enough, because Arsenal pop it off within one touch. They don't even take a touch to set themselves. It's a first time pass pretty much every time. And they almost do it. It looks a bit like a training drill, the way that they make it look so easy, but it's actually really impressive. Now, of course, that doesn't just happen. That is work on the training ground, coaching, but also there is a couple of tactical things as well. So one of the things, let's say Arsenal are playing out of the press whilst the opposition are using a 4-3-3, for example. Basically, what the opposition would do in this situation is put their wingers on the two fullbacks, and the striker kind of splits the two centre-backs. The problem that opposition teams have in these situations is that Arsenal have Gabriel, who's very good on the ball, Saliba, who is brilliant on the ball, but also Aaron Ramsdale in goal. So typically, if you don't want to use your goalkeeper in this situation, it's a 2 versus 1, so this player can kind of split the centre-backs and force them one way. However, Arsenal are very happy to go back to Ramsdale and then go round. So basically what Arsenal do is make this a 3 versus 1 situation. And I think Ramsdale, this season in particular, has really shown the importance of a modern ball-playing goalkeeper, because his distribution is just excellent. Now, as a result, some teams have tried to counter this by moving their wingers a little bit narrower to pressure the centre-backs like so, stop this 3 versus 1 here, make it a bit more of a 3 versus 3. But then what Arsenal do, again, is they use Ramsdale's incredible ball-playing ability and just clip passes out to the fullbacks, taking out 3 pressing forwards. So again, Ramsdale really is important to the way that Arsenal play out from the back. Another thing that we can see sometimes if Arsenal are being pressed by what might be a bit more of a 4-4-2 formation like this. For some reason I can't figure out a 4-4-2. Let's say it's like this, for example. We've got the front 4 here. Arsenal move their fullbacks a little bit deeper than what most teams do. Typically, fullbacks will push up into this sort of area when playing out the press. However, Ben White and Zinchenko can often actually drop quite deep. And I think the reason for this is because the opposition are just not willing to pull these players as high up the pitch, because they don't want to sacrifice that many players that high up the pitch, basically. However, if they do, then Arsenal can get the ball out to the fullback, and then these number 8s, Odegaard and Xhaka, can pull into these wider areas where the ball can then be worked to them, and this is another way that Arsenal get in behind the press. And basically, I don't think there's a better team in England at the moment at playing through the press. I think Manchester City is certainly up there. However, for me this season, the way that Arsenal do it in one-touch football, I think is actually better. And as a result, Arsenal are a team that progress very easily to the middle third of the pitch because they're so good at playing through the press. And basically, it's got to a point where most teams go, okay, we probably aren't even good enough to press you, so we're going to let you play out from the back, let you have a bit more time on the ball, and as a result, Arsenal have become a very possession-dominant team. So as I was saying there, as a result of this quality in possession, Arsenal are able to move the ball towards the middle third. With the opposition kind of now sitting off a little bit, retreating back, Arsenal are given the opportunity to quickly get into their shape and play the game at their pace. In terms of what their shape is, it is very often a front 5, with 2 players pushing forward to join the front 3, like so. However, the rotations that we see in deeper areas are a little bit different. At times it will be a bit of a 2-3 shape with Zinchenko and White very narrow either side of Thomas Partey. At times we can see one of them wider, so it's still a 2-3, but it is off balance like this. We can also see a 3-2 shape with Ben White dropping deeper alongside the two centre-backs, and Zinchenko pretty much becomes a midfielder. That is something that we've seen many times this season, but also we can see Granit Xhaka dropping into these areas, and then Zinchenko will push a bit further forward, either inverted or out wide, but it tends to be 5 players in this deeper area, either in a 3-2 shape or in a 2-3 shape. Did I say that right? Either in a 3-2 shape or in a 2-3 shape. Basically, Arsenal nearly always have 5 players that build possession in these deeper areas, and then this front attacking 5. The important thing with someone like Thomas Partey in the side is that there isn't a disconnect. So yes, there are these 5 players which kind of seem responsible for initially building possession, and there's 5 of the more attacking players. Thomas Partey makes sure that that's not disconnected into 2 separate 5s. He really links to play very well, and I think what probably showcases that the most isn't any stats that I could show you or even any of his performances. The thing that probably highlights it the most is the way that Arsenal play as soon as Thomas Partey drops out of this team. We've seen it a few times in recent weeks because of injury or suspension, and Arsenal's quality in those games has dropped off, and they have dropped some points recently. However, the second Partey comes back in the side, they just look so much better, and I think that's a big credit to him as a player. Been very good this season, but also Xhaka as well. Because of his ability to sometimes pop up deeper and allow Zinchenko to go further forward, Xhaka is also that link point from kind of this building possession phase to now we're getting it forward into the more attacking players. And of course, we can't really talk about Arsenal and the way that they play in these areas, sometimes with inverted fullbacks, one inverted fullback. We really can't talk about this without talking about Zinchenko. One of the signings of the season, he has been absolutely brilliant. The only criticism would be that he hasn't necessarily been available as much as what Arsenal would have liked all the time. However, when he plays, he is quality, and it was genius from Arteta bringing him into the club. Now it looks so daft from Manchester City though to let this move happen, because if Arsenal do win the Premier League ahead of Manchester City, which right now looks very possible, a large part of it will be because of Zinchenko and just his ability to adapt into so many different roles. Some other teams in England do kind of try this idea of an inverted fullback. However, when they do it, they literally have an inverted fullback that just stays there in midfield. Arsenal are very fluid with the way that they do it. Sometimes Ben White will be in these areas, sometimes he'll be wide, sometimes Zinchenko will be in these areas, sometimes he'll be out wide, sometimes Ben White will be in a back 3. It's constantly moving, so it's much more difficult for the opposition to read it, and again, as a result, Arsenal are very, very dominant in possession. And now the question mark from here, basically, is can they break teams down? Because Arsenal have so much of the ball that the opposition are literally forced to sit deeper. So before we continue with the video, I want to talk to you guys about where I got this shirt from, and you probably guessed it, jerseyfifa.com. They have kindly sponsored today's video and also sent me a load of free shirts for me to check out myself, and I can now really vouch for the quality of these products. They have loads of shirts to offer on the website, so if you are interested, head to the link in the description down below and check out Jersey FIFA for yourself. So as I said there, the question for Arsenal from this point is can they break teams down? And I mean, I think the fact that they're top of the Premier League probably gives you the answer. It is a resounding yes. And the reason that Arsenal are able to break teams down is because, one, teams almost this season weren't expecting them to do as well as they have done, so they've kind of caught teams off guard a little bit. If you look at Manchester City and Liverpool over the past 3 seasons, they both had a season where they were very, very difficult to stop, and then over time people started to adjust to it a bit. People haven't managed to start adjusting to Arsenal just yet, so Arsenal are doing very well. One of the reasons it's so hard to deal with Arsenal though, is because they have threat all over the pitch. Down the right hand side, they are absolutely brilliant with rotations, which we'll look at. Same with down the left hand side, and also down the middle. This isn't a side which just focuses their play down the left, or just down the right, or just down the centre. They have attacking outlets everywhere. We'll start with the left hand side, where I think, again, with Zinchenko and Xhaka kind of making these rotations, it kind of sets the tone for the attack. We see a lot of rotations down this left hand side of the pitch. Martinelli will often start a little bit wider and act as an isolation winger up against a fullback. That is something that we see quite often. However, there are also plenty of opportunities for Zinchenko to get round on the overlap, and then Martinelli will come inside. We can also see Granit Xhaka at times dropping into more of a left-back role here, and we also see Nketiah dropping into this area as well. Now, this was something that we saw from quite early in the season when Gabriel Jesus was doing it. I done a video back in August, I think was the last time we looked at Arsenal's tactics, and this is something that we were talking about. The fear was, with Jesus getting injured, could Nketiah come in and do as good a job? And I'll be honest, I think he's done a better job. I think he needs to add a couple more goals to his game. The past month has dried up a little bit. However, I still think he's done a brilliant job. And this ability to drop left-hand side and rotate with players makes Arsenal, again, so dangerous. So they're very rigid in their system, but also very fluid as well. And this is something that I've been talking about with Manchester United recently. But for those that haven't watched that video, just to kind of explain what I mean, because it sounds a bit odd to say they're fluid and rigid at the same time. How can you be both in an attack? Well, the reason they are rigid is because they always have players in set zones. They tend to have someone either in this left back area or this inverted left back area. They always have someone wide left, and they always have someone moving more inside to the channel, with Nketiah also joining in as well. However, just because they always have players in those three zones, it doesn't mean it's always the same players. As we've seen already, sometimes Xhaka will overlap, sometimes Martinelli will be wide, sometimes Zinchenko will be narrow and deep, sometimes he'll be narrow and high, sometimes he'll be wide. The three zones are always covered, but it's always a different player picking up those positions. So if you are the defending team and, for example, you want to man mark Martinelli, that's quite difficult to do when sometimes he's popping up out here, sometimes he's popping up here, sometimes he's popping up here. It makes it very difficult to defend in that way because Arsenal are constantly moving all about the pitch. What this tends to do as a result is it drags opposition teams over to this side of the pitch because simply Arsenal have more players this side with Nketiah as well. So teams kind of gravitate over to this area to try and stop Arsenal building in their combinations. However, what this then does as a result is it means that the ball can go out the other side, and it frees up room for Odegaard in particular, who, playing in this right channel as a free 8 but being left-footed, is constantly looking to kind of make this movement from right inside onto his stronger left foot, either to get a shot off at goal or to create an opportunity. And again, Odegaard has been brilliant this season, but a lot of it comes from Arsenal's ability to kind of build the ball down this side and then quickly move the ball across to Odegaard. From here, Odegaard is very capable of slipping a pass through here to someone like Nketiah, or he will then combine with Saka, which we'll look at in a second. But in general, Arsenal pull the midfield about very well. And the reason they're able to do this is because they often have 4 players there. So let's say Zinchenko is deeper, Martinelli is out wide. We can see that we've got Zinchenko, Thomas Partey, Odegaard and Xhaka forming a box in midfield. This is something that we're seeing more and more in football at the moment, a box midfield. And the reason for it is because if the opposition play a midfield 3, Arsenal are able to outnumber them. And as a result, if they get pulled about like so, it does free up someone like Odegaard to get the ball in this area. And this is why Arsenal have been so threatening down the middle of the pitch as well. We've seen down the left-hand side, those rotations, they cause problems for defenders. We've now seen in the middle that Arsenal have very good overloads, but also then they have the ability to get the ball to the right-hand side. And this is where it is also important that Arsenal often build with a front 5. And again, in a league where most teams play a back 4, it means that Arsenal are outnumbering them. Which means that, again, go to the left-hand side. If the team wants to squeeze over and try and mark Arsenal like so, it means that you're going to have the free player on the other side of the pitch, which is Bukayo Saka. And what we see a lot from Arsenal is the ball going backwards and then quickly being switched out to the other side. And the reason for this is because they have the free man. Even if the man isn't free, on both sides of the pitch, Arsenal have very good 1 versus 1 wingers, what I often like to call isolation wingers. Bukayo Saka this season has been absolutely brilliant in these sorts of positions, taking on his man, either getting to the byline and cutting balls across, coming inside and shooting a goal, linking up with someone like Odegaard. Also, Ben White has been very, very important. What we can often see is that Ben White and Saka will play on the same line, and typically this would be a criticism of a team, because normally if 2 players are on the same line, it just reduces the angles of which you can pass the football, and it makes it easier to defend against. However, what Ben White has this very good ability to do is put the ball on the inside of Bukayo Saka, and Saka lets the ball run across his body very, very intelligently. So they're playing on the same line, however the pass doesn't go on the same line. So we can see here, you could draw a straight line down here. However, the ball will go slightly diagonally, which allows Saka to kind of run across the ball, like this. And then when you've got someone like Odegaard running in here, it can drag players away, drag the defenders back, and then it gets Saka into really dangerous positions. And again, like Odegaard, he is very creative when he comes in off the right-hand side into these areas. Of course, also the option is for Saka to receive the ball here, and if the fullback gets tighter, then we've got Odegaard who can make underlapping runs. And again, from here, Arsenal are just very good at cutting the ball back across the box. They get the ball into so many different dangerous areas. And the reason for this is because they have these rotations down the left-hand side, they have these overloads and intelligent play in the middle, and then, of course, down the right wing, very, very dangerous with Bukayo Saka, arguably the best right winger in the world at the moment. It makes Arsenal very dangerous going forward. However, it isn't just Arsenal's attack which has been impressive this season, because their defence has been pretty decent as well. So one of the reasons that Arsenal have been so good defensively this season, and it's probably the main reason, is because of their shape in possession is so balanced, which means it gives them good rest defence. Now rest defence is essentially the positions you are picking up whilst you are in possession, so that you are in a good position to defend if your team was to lose the ball. What we can see here is when Arsenal attack in the situations when it's a 2-3-5 like this, with both fullbacks in this area alongside Thomas Partey, we can see that Arsenal have kind of every zone covered on the pitch. We've got a player in the middle here, we've then got 2 players in the channels, 2 players out wide, and then this kind of what we will call a midfield 3, although it's made up of 2 fullbacks. What this means is that let's say Odegaard loses the ball here with a risky pass in here. It means that Arsenal have players around the ball to quickly go and win it back. Nketiah quickly latches on. Odegaard is there, Saka is there, Ben White is happy to be aggressive, Thomas Partey is happy to be aggressive. Arsenal quickly squeeze high and win the ball back. And they are very, very good at counter-pressing. And the reason for this is because of good recruitment. And again, I think this is where Arteta deserves credit. Arsenal have recruited very well over the past few years, and they've got a very, very physical side. On paper, we kind of look at it and talk about the technical quality, the likes of Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Martinelli. These are all players that, yes, very technically good, but they also play with a lot of intensity. Odegaard, for example, compared to someone like Bernardo Silva, or trying to think of another example, Christian Eriksen at Manchester United, Odegaard plays with a bit more strength to his game than what Christian Eriksen does, and that's why it makes him better at counter-pressing in these situations. Saka plays with a lot of energy on his side, we know he does. Nketiah always hassling the defenders. Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey in midfield, we both know the amount of work that they get through. Arsenal use a very athletic approach, which at times makes it look a bit chaotic. We saw it particularly in games against Manchester United. It does sometimes lead to chaotic games, however, it suits Arsenal very well because their team is so athletic. And that includes the centre-backs as well. If the ball is to go longer from the opposition, Saliba and Gabriel have had very, very good seasons. I think in recent weeks Saliba has dropped off a little bit since the World Cup, a bit mistake-prone at times. However, I think Gabriel deserves a lot of credit. I think the way that he has led his defence, probably going under the radar a little bit. Last season I was a bit disappointed by his performances. However, this year I think he's been very good. So Saliba first half of the season was brilliant. However, what Gabriel has done is kind of sustained it across the whole season, which has been very important to Arsenal. But again, probably the most important thing about the two of them is that they are very athletic, particularly Saliba. If the opposition want to go long and try and play the ball kind of up in the air, Saliba and Gabriel are both happy to go win it. But if the opposition want to go in behind the defence, Saliba's recovery pace in these situations is quite scary really, Virgil van Dijk-esque. And it stops the opposition getting out of the press, which allows Arsenal to quickly win the ball back in these areas and then attack again. And that is why Arsenal are so dangerous in the attack, because they're so good defensively. It all knits together quite nicely. All of these little patterns and all of these little things combined is what makes Arsenal so good as a team this season. The question mark is going to be, can they sustain it? Next season they will be in the Champions League. Can they produce these sorts of performances when they're playing so much more football? Next season, there is a decent chance that they pick up more injuries, so there will be big tests ahead for Mikel Arteta. However, it looks to me like Arsenal have themselves one of the best managers in the world at the moment. So if he's given the resources in the summer to improve the squad again, which I think he will be, I would like to think he would be based on performances this season, then Arsenal will be dangerous again next season, I'm sure of it. I guess the question in the short term is, can they win the title? I'm not going to put my neck on the line and make a prediction there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Will Arsenal win the Premier League this season? Now, I dare say there will be Arsenal fans watching this video. You guys are probably going to say yes. There's probably Manchester United fans watching this video. You guys might say no. Manchester City fans will have a say as well. Let me know, though, what you think in the comments down below. How good are Arsenal? Who are their most important players? Is it Bukayo Saka? Is it Zinchenko? Is it Thomas Partey? Is it Saliba, Gabriel, Ramsdale? Who is their most important player? Let me know in the comments down below. Where do you think they will finish in the league this season? Who has been the signing of the season? All of that, get in the comments down below and let me know what you think. Again, thank you for all of your support in February. It really has been greatly appreciated. I'm probably not going to keep up a video a day in March just because it's a lot of work to get it done. However, I probably will still aim for 25 videos a month. So, as always, get in the comments down below and also let me know some videos you'd like to see on the channel in the next 30 days or so. Loads to get in the comments. I'll try and reply to as many of them as possible. But that's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video. And as always, I will see you in the next one.